He says good luck.
We just went live and you just said good luck when we going live.
It's just like Jules, exactly.
Good luck, everybody. By the way, top tip to anybody out there who might be doing podcasts, one of the best things you can do to get your voice ready for a podcast is on the drive over, just belt out all your favorite songs in the car.
Oh, okay then.
If anybody wanted industry secrets, that's Joshua Vergara's right there.
Thank you, Joshua. I will make a note of that actually right now.
Boys to Men is a great one. No, I'm just kidding.
Logic for that matter.
Yeah, there you go. All right, here we go. It's episode 343 of the Weekly from Pocketnow and XD developers, recorded on Friday, the 1st of February, 2019. Oh, it's already February.
I can't believe it, yeah.
I know. Welcome to the shortest month of the year, everybody. And congratulations on getting through what seemed to be the longest week of mobile tech news. Clearly, we have a lot to talk about on this episode. We're pushing forward on all of the things that make us go from 5G to foldables to whatever we can come up with, or really whatever the industry can come up with, because everything's coming out the woodwork these days. I am, of course, Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? And I'll take the opportunity to wish everyone a happy Lunar New Year as well, which begins on Tuesday. So just a few days from now. So next week, there's going to be celebrations all over the place. I personally, as a Filipino, don't get those red envelopes, but if anyone wants to throw one my way, I'll take it.
Well, you can have some of the ones from my house, my friend.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
I can't eat mooncake though. Let me just say that. I will be spending some time with my family after the show, not necessarily for Lunar New Year, but I'm definitely ready for my lunch. So let's get into our show. TK Bay is back with us in place of Brandon for this week. How's it going with you, man?
I'm doing good. And I'm happy to be able to join you guys one more time. I always love being able to join the show. So thanks for having me.
You're not outside this time.
No, I will not. I do apologize. I'm sorry. Yes, I thought I could actually be very versatile. Ultra book, go outside, sit and do. Yeah, no. This time
nice try.
I learned my lesson. Yeah, I know.
All right. Well, Jaime is going to be joining us when he gets a chance to later. Obviously, as anybody who watches the show knows, his internet tends to be a bit of a thing. Oh, there you go. I was just talking about how bad your internet is, Jaime.
Give me a second.
There we go. Jaime is back. We'll go ahead and just give him a wave as he gets set up. And we're also introducing somebody new from the Matrix. I mean, the Matrodox.
Yep, that's it.
And if you can't tell, he is in New Jersey. We're talking to Max Buondono. Did I say that right, by the way?
Bondano.
Okay. Because
he'll butcher my last name all the time. It'll be fine.
I cannot roll my R's, and this one I was reading it like completely phonetically, like every letter.
But has anybody made the proper introduction, like welcome to the real world?
No, but everybody gets my last name wrong. It's a known thing. Like my dad suffered with that his whole life. It's no big deal.
Welcome to my world.
It's okay. I think I don't have anybody beat, but it's funny. My middle name is Briones, and everyone always pronounced it Brownies. So
that's the thing. Briones is a last name. It's not a middle name.
Yeah, it was my mom's previous name, of course.
Interesting. Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right, cool. So now that everybody is in, let's go ahead and get into our stories. Okay, so we normally have a worksheet that we use in order to look at all of the stories before the show goes live. Every week, I get a little bit excited to go through the stories pretty quickly. I get to the office earlier every single week to go through all of them, and I think it's going to be a nice, easy show. This one may not. This one might be a little different. There's a lot to talk about, not only because some of the stories we're going to talk about at the end of the show actually made it onto local news. That's how big that story is. But for now, we're going to get into a lot of little pieces of information that we might be getting during MWC. After all, Mobile World Congress is in a few weeks, and we're getting a lot of different leaks and announcements that might be happening. And the first one that we're going to look at is by Sony with the Xperia XZ4. All right. Anybody in this, I know that, Jaime, you haven't because I was the one who did the review on the Honor, but have any of you other two used the new Honor with Sony's latest sensor that's at 48 megapixels?
I can't
have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about.
You have two phones. Can I have one? Thank you.
Actually, believe it or not, they took that one. They took the red one back.
Oh no!
One
How
of the
dare
so
they?
there was a giveaway going on, and the other unit was for the giveaway. So I actually personally hand delivered that unit back to them in
How
Paris.
dare they?
Oh,
Oh my
geez.
God.
I've never had separation anxiety as much as when I give phones away. I don't know why. It's like I
Same,
feel like
brother.
I'm doing part of me. Yeah, but yeah, they're very nice. Yes, I've spent quite a good amount of time with that phone. Definitely.
Yeah, same. And okay, TK, quick thoughts from you about just how fantastic is that camera, photo-wise, at least.
Photo-wise is just it the way to describe it, this is by far the way I envision trying to take pictures with phones. The reason behind that is the ability to shoot a 48 megapixel image, and you don't have to worry about zoom or worry about any kind of cropping. You just take that 48 megapixel image and then crop to whatever you want. The composition is yours. You're able to just fit everything you want. And it's something that I've learned from Jaime, even from before with shooting video. Shoot in 4K but render in 1080p, because then you have more control into what you're doing in the image, and it just does it so well. I like the AI clarity that they have in there, and I had a fun time taking pictures with it in Paris. Of course, we were snowed in, but it's a pleasure. It's nice to see something so good and just unexpected, because you don't really think it was going to be that good till you have it in your hand.
Yeah. So I echo a lot of those thoughts as well. I mean, it's a fantastic sensor being used in a very effective way, partially because Honor has such a close relationship with Huawei. So a lot of those features make it onto that sensor. So my final thought in that review was, I can't wait to see what everyone else does with this sensor. And now here comes Sony saying we're gonna one up it even further. So apparently, according to a Japanese publication, we're not going to get just that 48 megapixel sensor that is in the Honor View 20. Potentially, the XZ4 is going to have something of 52 megapixels. And
But they haven't announced that sensor, so I'm kind of skeptical over what it is.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. But the thing is, the reason why I wanted to bring up what TK was saying about the Honor is because even if it's not 52 megapixels, the 48 megapixel that is official is already pretty great. So I don't know. The Xperia might be a very exciting phone.
But how about if we get the Sony camera with Huawei software on that thing? Because Sony software's like trash. It's like Sony is like one of those companies where it's like if Qualcomm made a phone but they wouldn't know how to take advantage of their own processor, that's Sony. That is Sony for you.
That is true. Now, Max, the Sony phones. What's the last Xperia that you've used?
I have never used an Xperia phone, believe it or not.
This has got to be the first one. I think right now is probably the best time to try it out, because not only the sensor, but also because, I mean, we're seeing a lot of stuff happening this year that hopefully will enhance Sony phones to the point where they become really, really compelling. Because over the last number of years, you may not know this, Max, but they're kind of the same every single year.
I have noticed that just from my own research and everything. Like they stick with the same, I want to say like rectangular body, but like they don't use the same sort of design language as like a iPhone or whatever with like curved corners and stuff. It's always like this super boxy thing. I've tried getting units of it and stuff, but sometimes I'm just like, I'm not even going to bother. It just looks weird.
And don't bother. Like it takes forever to get units from these guys. And then like I did the review on the XZ3 and on the XZ2, and I was like, all right, these phones are good. They feel great and everything. And it's just, I'm trying to understand, like, glass is not made by Sony, like the metal's not made by Sony, meaning, this is not what they're good at. What they make is camera sensors, and that's the part they get wrong. Like, what?
Yeah.
Well, I am in the process of trying to get a View 20 unit like TK has, because just the design is very attractive to me.
It's really nice. It's really nice.
Actually,
I'm so envious.
I'm buddies with Rich at NeoWin, and he just got one, and so I was asking him about it and stuff. But I'm just like looking at it in his video. I'm like, oh my gosh, that looks sick. So I'm working on it, but we'll see.
Okay. Well, this is a leak, a rumor. Well, we'll call it a rumor because I can't even really say it's a leak because we can't really corroborate it and whatsoever.
Right.
So we'll just say it's a rumor for now. But my point is, it may be 52, it may be 48. In either case, it's probably going to be pretty great because we've already experienced the 48, as I said earlier. Now let's go to something that is actually pretty much official, and that is we're one-upping literally every little part of a phone that we possibly can. So here comes Samsung.
This is ridiculous. Keep going.
Do you need 1 terabyte in a phone?
No.
Remember, it was one of their taglines for the Note 9 too. Remember, this is the phone that you'd be able to put a 512 on top of the 512.
Yeah,
That's
but
true.
you couldn't buy a 512 back then.
No, back then, no.
No, and so it's like, I don't know. It's great. It's bragging rights, and this is what Samsung does. See, Samsung makes chips, and they're good at it, and they build them into their phones. They get it right. That's just the way it is, man. I don't know. I have 1 terabyte on this laptop that I use for work. The only reason I need 1 terabyte is because of ProRes. When you render in ProRes, it's like, shoot, like it'll eat up your hard drive in a couple of videos. But the advantage of ProRes is it's such a large pipe for you to throw in all media that there's just lossless format. It's great. But this is where you need it. Like if you're editing a video, like I could totally see myself using an iPad with 1 terabyte because of the mine is 256. I do a lot of the thumbnails that we do. I use a lot of that software. And so for that, plus I want to start doing my vlog editing on that iPad Pro, that's where I need 1 terabyte. But on a phone, it's like, nah, what am I going to throw in there?
Yeah. Max, you flashed an iPhone a second ago. Which model is that?
This is the 10s. I have this. It's actually on loan from Verizon, but I've enjoyed it. It's got 64 gigs of storage on it, though. So
that's the thing. Like, to get even more, you got to pay way more. Is that do you think that's going to be the case with Samsung with this 1 terabyte thing?
Oh, absolutely. But the thing is, I would strongly advise anyone not to ever buy a terabyte of storage in their phone. They will never use it. Like, just general people, like the general consumer. I have problems trying to fill up a 128 phone. Like I have a OnePlus 6T. And I've maybe filled that up 35-40% of the way. So just imagining a terabyte is it's ridiculous.
And then the price tag, it's like $1,600. Just to give you an idea. Like if you want to boost. So here's the thing. So if the retail price of that phone, let's assume that the retail price of that phone is $1,000. Let's just make up that's the price tag.
Sure.
$1,600. Oh my God! If I want to get 1 terabyte on a MacBook Pro, it's $400. Why a $600 to $800 premium over 1 terabyte?
Well, okay. What you're saying.
To be fair, I feel like okay, this particular 1 terabyte drive, if this chart is to be believed, the read and write speeds are pretty fantastic. They're not that much higher than the previous one, but what I'm thinking of here is that it should be these read and write speeds for like 128 gigabytes or 256 gigabytes. It should be that, and
but because it's not like if Android can take advantage of read and write speeds that are that crazy either, man.
Well, perhaps so. Yeah, that's true. It's definitely better than using an external SD card, which potentially have slower read and write. So, but what about incentives? Like, wouldn't Samsung, like, if you're going to get a 1 terabyte hard drive, flash memory, whatever, inside of a phone like this, why not give some incentives? I know everyone got really mad that there was like preloaded content on certain phones and whatnot, but this would be an interesting way of making people actually enjoy 1 terabyte by putting things like Fortnite in there or a lot of movies or something like that.
And then you'll have 980 gigabytes left.
This is true. Yeah. How about you, TK? How do you feel about the storage option here?
I think, I'm with you guys. I think it's way overkill. I think the 512 model of the Note 9 was a hard one to even try to fill up. I tried.
You got that one? Oh my God.
If you check out the channel, I get to play with a lot of things. I had a chance to play with that one, and it was one of those you need to. There's just no way. But the problem is you also still had expandable storage. So that's the other thing. My question that I'm maybe looking slightly deeper on that one is, if they offer the 1,000 terabyte internal drive, are they considering removing the internal storage expansion? Is that in lieu of it? You know, like when they go with higher storage, because they want to say, well, look, you don't need to worry about it. You don't need the SD card anymore. This will take you years to fill up.
They did that with the S8, didn't they?
I
Or
think
a
it's,
S7?
no.
They never. They did it with the S6.
Oh, S6. That was the one. Okay, and that was the reason why they did it. That was just what TK said. They said that the memory would not be, or the storage would not be fast enough for what they were trying to get.
But back then, in those days of Android, like there was a substantial difference, and like you could load apps on the SD card, and they would just bog them down, and so it would just throw the experience out the trash. That was the reason.
And it's still, yeah, no. And so I think 512 is overkill. 256, I think, is. I would say for me about the sweet spot that I'd like to say that's a good one, because whenever you're testing the phone, like for what we do, and you try to go out and shoot a lot of 4K, a lot of pictures, and go on an actual trip to kind of get all that content, you want to have that buffer room. You want to be able to say, look, I'm never going to fill it up. 64 should just go away. I don't think 64 should exist. This is not a
64 should go away.
No, 64 should totally go away indeed. But like the problem is when you have devices like the OnePlus 6T McLaren, where you get 256 gigs for $699. $699. It's like 10 gigabytes of RAM, 10 gigabytes of RAM, and 256 gigs. And you're not gonna fill those up, man. Like the only phone where I see myself filling that up, and judge me all you want, is with an iPhone XS or XS Max. I would want one of those with a terabyte because of their video capability. It's like their codec for 4K at 60 is second to none in mobile. So I could totally see myself vlogging permanently with an iPhone just because of the codec, and then that storage would be useful for me for that. You know, the thing about like Galaxies are good. Like they're scratching great when it comes to video, but it's like when you grab a video between, again, a Galaxy Note 9 and an iPhone XS, man, shoot, I'll pick the XS. That's just the way it is, you know?
Yeah, indeed. Okay, so as we keep the train rolling on features that were just one-upping during MWC, LG is looking to bring 5G to their, not the G series, though that probably would have made some sense. But but LG is looking to bring 5G to their V series, and that's the phone that potentially will be going on Sprint. Now, we've talked about 5G like crazy. We know that's going to go on Sprint. Whether or not that's actually a good thing or something that we could look forward to, that's all stuff we've talked about before. But this is my question to everybody. Is 5G enough to bring the V series this far forward in the release cycle? Wasn't the V series an IFA exclusive type of phone? Like, this is early.
Right. And so you imagine that they'll just show it off and they'll announce it and we'll get it until IFA.
That's true, huh? That's very possible.
Last year, they also did that whole V35 thing where they played that little nomenclature, you know, but the reality is, yeah, I think what Jaime was saying is this is more of a proof of, hey, we kind of did it just to say that we could do it. And, you know, it won't be available because they need the infrastructure. They need to be able to actually deploy it correctly.
True. Yeah.
No, and this is like the punch hole race where it was Samsung and Honor and all these companies announcing the phone first, but you know, in the end, nobody had launched it yet, and so that's what LG is doing. They're just going to announce their phone first, but for what? I mean, Unpacked is going to happen how many days before the LG event? 4 days before the LG event, and we know Samsung's going to do the same. So it's like, yeah, what, you know?
Yeah, Max, are you on the 5G hype? Are you get hype on 5G?
Yeah, no. Right. None of it matters to me until like next year, and then then I'll start getting hype. But until then, like the only person rolling out 5G at this point is AT&T, and that's not even 5G. So like it's not going to reach anybody, and it's not going to reach anybody where it matters until like next year. So yeah. I'm not going to ride on anything, but I do want to say one thing about this V50 thing. I certainly hope they do not call it a V50.
V50 like in Q, my friend.
Whatever. They better not, I swear, because the rumor says it's going to have a 6-inch display and all this stuff. Qualcomm 855, 4,000 milliamp hour battery. I think this is going to be like a V45 or something, like they did the V35 from last year, and then save the V50 for IFA.
Yeah, it probably should be, to be honest, because if these leaks are to be believed, these phones in 2019 are going to probably be the only ones with notches, and it's like you're already behind, and that
Exactly.
that honestly just disappoints me a little bit. Like, now, not to say that the notch actually breaks functionality in any which way, but it's just one of those things. Like, you look at it and you're like, oh man.
No, I
So-
agree. I agree.
how
Yeah.
about, but how about if we get another LG? This is going to be the LG V40s Plus ThinkQ.
Exactly. Yep.
You remember?
you got it.
Josh? You remember when we went to the briefing last year
Yeah.
at MWC, and they were like, "This is the LG V30s Plus ThinkQ." We were expecting to get a G7 at that event, at that briefing, and then it was like, "What?"
Yeah. And we were like, what exactly is different here? And they're like, AI and color. Like, that's pretty much all it was.
Same specs. Oh, you get different colors, but you get AI.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the ThinkQ thing was introduced. You can imagine how well that presentation went.
Yeah. Well, speaking of ridiculousness, have you guys been looking at these iPhone renders that have these ridiculous, like their own version of the stove on the back of their phone? Like,
Oh yeah.
But can you imagine Apple designers like looking at these concepts and renders and being like, maybe we should do that one.
Yeah, that one.
Or how about if we do that one? Because it's so early right now. We haven't even started designing, and these guys are already creating renders for this thing. Like, seriously.
This is the most ridiculous looking thing, and I hope it's not the case. Because number one, stove. Number two, the camera hump. Like, that entire thing is just
a hump. It's a massive hump.
Right.
The hunchback.
Well,
that's what we're going to call it.
Yeah. Well, okay. So potentially there might be a new camera that will appear on the back of the latest Apple devices that uses laser technology, maybe a time of flight camera, but a laser technology to sense object detail and proximity. Those are things that we've seen in Android phones.
Didn't LG have a laser sensor since like the G3?
Exactly.
Yep.
Laser
autofocusing has
autofocus.
been there exactly built in since then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It could be a multi-camera setup.
Without a hunchback.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so potentially the other rumor about this is that iOS 13 is going to get a dark mode, but perhaps to the dismay of a lot of users who have been very loyal to Apple over the last number of years, there might be an actual change to the port on the phone, going from Lightning to USB-C. Now, Jaime, you're the first. Okay, TK. Actually, you know what? Let me go to you real quick then, because Jaime over there is actually experiencing this change with his iPad Pro.
Oh, yeah, that's a problem.
There you go.
Go for it.
Okay. Well, so for me, I'm more for universal ports. I mean, we don't want to keep going between different cables. All of Android is already on USB-C. Audio peripherals are all starting to come out with USB-C. We have USB-C on GoPros and so on. Apple needs to we need to just have one format and make it simple and not having to carry all of these things on top of the fact that we have to carry dongles with our laptops. So to me, having that move, I think will make it better for us. But I didn't know that there are people, that there is concerns with the way with the iPad Pro. So please do tell.
So the problem is, it's not the connector; it's what the connector does. It's like, all right, so I have flash storage here. I want to connect it to my iPad because I want to throw in some video that I want to throw into my vlog, and boom, it doesn't work. You have problems like that. And then the other problem you have is obviously there is this like crazy ecosystem of Lightning-based, made for iPhone MFI products that now don't work on USB-C because Apple has not created a female Lightning to male USB-C connector, and there isn't any yet. And so, like for example, the microphone that I use for the daily, I can no longer use it on the iPad because I can't connect it to USB-C. And these MFI services only work on Lightning. So if you have anything that's MFI, like if you wanted to connect that iPad to one of those smart speakers that you find in any hotel room, they don't work. And there is no adapter. And so the biggest question is, it's not that I care about what's going to happen with the future of MFI. I care about what happens with all the accessories that I have right now. Like I know a lot of people, like a really good friend of mine is a musician, and he uses this Apogee connector, which is not cheap at all, to connect his guitar and to connect his organ. And none of these things work now. And so that's the reason why he hasn't upgraded to the new iPad. He wants it, but he's like, but what am I going to do with my stuff?
That would be my thing too. That the move to USB-C basically makes every peripheral, every accessory that you had in the past just wasted money. And as much, it's weird, right? Like when USB-C was first coming out, everyone was complaining about it because they didn't want to change their standards. They didn't want to change their cables. This would be the same exact argument for anybody who currently has Apple phones. Like Max, you're rocking a 10s. What if the 10ss or 10s2, 10, I don't know what.
10s2.
What if,
10ss.
yeah. What if that changes things up for you? Like,
well, to be honest, I'm not too heavily invested into the Apple ecosystem, like by any means. So like I'm a big Android guy and I only have USB-C cables. So having an iPhone in my life, invading that with its Lightning connector, it gets annoying. So if Apple puts a USB-C port on the next iPhone, I will buy it instantly.
It would just be the best. It would be the best poke in the side by Apple to make.
Of course.
Like, oh, hey, we moved to USB-C. Here's an adapter for your Lightning.
Yep.
No, but
Here's an adapter for all your Lightning cables.
Like honestly, it's fine. Again, my problem with USB-C on iPhones is not like I think USB-C is probably one of the coolest inventions. I love using them on my MacBook Pros. I love that all Windows laptops are moving except for the Surface. I don't know why. So don't get me wrong. I like the move. What I don't like is, again, Apple's implementation on iOS devices.
Yeah.
In the case of iPads alone, like, fine, I don't care if I can't connect Flash. Well, I do care. It's just Apple really needs to figure out a way to sandbox files out. I think that's the term. I'm probably wrong, but like, I don't care if they don't want us to access the file system, but they need to figure something out, because if the biggest, does anybody, well, none of you use Macs, but I remember when I bought a Mac. Oh, you do? You do, TK?
Yeah.
So I remember when I bought a Mac.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I remember when I bought a Mac originally, my first concern is, are all my things from Windows going to work on the Mac? And so the biggest selling point, like the first thing that I looked on YouTube was, does this work? And I was relieved to see, and a lot of people would be like, oh, they work the same. That's all great. But the problem is when you have different implementations of USB-C on iPhones, this is really frustrating for people that are considering switching. So not all USB-C protocols are created equal. That's what people need to know.
Exactly. It may look the same, but it won't function the same. And you're right. You're right. And that in my opinion, I think that's Apple's misstep there with the iPad Pro, specifically because this is a creation tool. A lot of people will use it. It's not just a media consumption tool. That adapter should have been either invented or at least included in the box to at least accommodate the existing user base. They did it when they moved from the 12-pin connector to the Lightning.
Exactly.
Remember, it was the whole, what do you do? But they included options, and that transition was hard, but because we moved to something better. It does.
But there were adapters. That's the thing. Like, there was an adapter to 30-pin, and that's great.
Exactly, and that's what they need to do. They need to keep their consumer base. They need to take care of their consumer base. I think that's the better way. And I personally love my Mac. Nothing against Windows PCs. I just, from a reliability standpoint, I can tell you that I've had almost no crashes within the last 2 years on my MacBook Pro. Not to say that Windows bad. It just, you can depend on it. It works. You turn it on and it works. It works great.
Fair. And one last thought on this for USB-C. If in a perfect world, for me at least, every USB-C port would be Thunderbolt 3. It adds another wrinkle in the confusion that is USB-C.
I know why you're doing that. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Well, because the thing is, like, I do use an eGPU on this MateBook in order to.
I want to build one like that. I want to build an eGPU. You've made me want to get an eGPU, man.
There you go. Because gaming, it's just more fun. And the thing is that there are other ways of getting that kind of gaming performance out of it, and Apple's throwing their hat into the ring. So there is. Could you see Apple actually being, or rather, the service that they're creating? It would be the Netflix for gaming. I don't think I like that term, but I kind of see where Apple's coming from with this, because apparently a new service is going to come out that will allow for games to be played via a streaming service. Now, there's a reason why I actually kind of like this. Even though I'm not an Apple user, even though I don't use Macs, I can see this being a thing because anyone who does game on the regular can't usually do it on a MacBook. Streaming is the way to do it. So that kind of makes sense to me, actually.
Well, that's NVIDIA's implementation too. They did the GeForce Now implementation on the Mac. That's one of the great ways of playing. It's streaming. I do believe cloud gaming is going to be a big player in the near future, specifically with AAA titles, new games, specifically with people that just don't want to invest in the hardware, but yet still want to be able to get a great experience.
You
It
guys know
could work.
that Google did one, right? Google has Google Stream right now. I tried to get in. I couldn't get in.
I'm hoping it does actually take off other than just the initial test that we saw. But it would be amazing if we have some kind of a streamlined process that allows us to, again, like I said, because not everybody's going to be buying the higher end models, and they want to maybe play some really good titles. And I feel like streaming, and if they can do this GameFly of Netflix of a system.
GameFly, that's a throwback right there.
Yeah, when you said Netflix, we're going like, wait, what happened to GameFly? Oh yeah, it's not online.
Yeah. Are you a big gamer, Max? Sorry, I want to make sure we get Max in on this one.
Yeah.
That's all right. No. To answer your question, no.
Why am I always the only one who does?
You're teaching me things, but no, I'm completely against gaming on streaming, man. I
haven't tried it yet. I've been hearing some good things though, depending on your internet connection, obviously.
Yeah.
So my biggest problem is like I travel a lot, and so when is it that I want to play a game more? When I'm on a plane and I've got a lot of time to spare, and guess what doesn't work? So it's like you're on a 15-hour flight to China. I want to play a couple of games, and oh crap, they need to connect. Damn it,
Yeah.
I like for me to be invested in gaming, I would need for an option for offline gaming, which not all games do, and that's the biggest problem. Like if there was like a mode where I could still play something offline, then great.
That's my thinking. I think Apple's just going to, instead of selling individual games, they'll feature a few of them in a package that you can pay monthly for to play, like exclusive titles and stuff. You'll be able to download them. That's my thinking. But then again, I'm not a gamer, so I don't know.
for the casual gamer,
I play Alto's Odyssey. That's it.
Okay. So Jules brought in an interesting thought that maybe you could download down one of the games and then be able to like have kind of like a Steam implementation of it. But then of course there might be some sort of DRM on it. It has to connect to the internet at some point over the course of, let's say, 3 to 5 days. They do that on Android from time to time as well. The problem
Super Mario Run.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The problem with that, in my estimation, is we go back to the original problem. On a MacBook, it's not easy to get these kinds of games to actually install. That's the reason why streaming actually circumvents a lot of those problems, that you don't have the specs for it. You don't have you don't actually have the OS for it, because obviously a lot of these games are not made for Mac OS.
Exactly.
So that's the wrinkle in all of this, I feel like.
Didn't PlayStation want to do something like that? Like it was.
Yeah, they have PlayStation Now.
Does it work?
It does work. I have the worst internet connection at home for that kind of thing, but I have heard from people that it works quite well. And I remember trying to use it one time, because they had a PlayStation TV where you could actually stream PlayStation Now to it. So you all of a sudden had like the entire library of PS2 and PS3 games via stream.
Yeah.
And it's a great idea. Like, I think it is a great idea, because especially now that we live in the world of subscriptions, and that's what PlayStation Now was or is. I haven't done it in a long time though. I still want to get into Google Stream, though. I really wanted to try that out. Okay, so from the gaming, I don't really have a great Thank you, Jules, for the kudos on the segue on that last one. But yeah, I don't really have a great segue for this one. But I will say, it seems as though, and I don't think anyone's really surprised by this, Android and iOS people are pretty much going to be staying put in their platforms because release cycles for hardware are starting to elongate a bit. There's really no reason to actually change from one platform to the other, or really there's not a whole lot of incentive between the two too often. And as far as this graph shows, as Jules is showing right now, a lot of people are just kind of staying where they are. That particular graph, anybody who's watching the live right now, that's from the Consumer Intelligence Research Partners, and that graph basically shows that everyone's kind of just sticking where they are.
People like what they like. Yeah,
exactly.
Bird chirp or chirp.
Chirp. Yeah, I like chirp.
No, I like everybody that I know. People, I've got friends, and probably sometimes we get extra samples of phones or stuff like that, and they probably have issues like with their phone, and I'm like, I think I have an extra one that you could borrow while you get your phone replaced or something. And they're like, oh, what iPhone is it? I'm like, no, it's an Android phone. And they're like, oh, but I need an iPhone. Like, some people are like so invested, man.
It's true. And
I've noticed that the less tech savvy that somebody is, the more they want to not try something else that's not iPhone. I think that the Galaxy S4 was like the worst introduction to Android, because I know a lot of people switched to Android with that Galaxy S4 and then they immediately came back.
I mean, well, back then there was a much more compelling case for staying away from Android if you could. Man, I'll always remember those eras. But okay, so Jules has a really good question here. We can go a little bit into this. I don't want to go too long on this. The war never changes. The war between Android and iOS. Like, was it even worth debating if you basically are in your ecosystem and you're never going to change anyway? Because now, whenever we do versus and whenever we do comparisons between these two ecosystems, it's almost as if it's a crusade to get people to come over to our side. But no one's going to do that. Like, it doesn't seem like it anymore. TK Max, your thoughts?
iMessage.
Oh God, why is everyone always?
I don't use iMessage, and yet
neither do I.
And yet, there's a reason why I stick to. There's a reason why there's always an iPhone either in my bag or in one of my pockets. It's social media.
Yep. No, I agree. Instagram is 10 times better on iOS than it is on Android.
Like my son is one of those people that will never accept an Android phone. He will, it doesn't matter how old the iPhone is. He will take it. He's got this meme of this toad in really. It's all boxy, all 8-bit graphics.
Yeah.
And this is what Snapchat looks like on Android.
It's
That's
true,
accurate.
though. I mean, because they're designed and they're first developed on iOS, and then they're later ported over. It's just the way that they're focusing on 90% of their consumer base. Yeah, Instagram, Snapchat. I mean, I've seen them at events, and the way they talk, they don't even think Android existed.
Now, it is fair to say that apps are starting to get better on Android. For instance, the Pixel, Instagram is starting to develop more, better experiences for Pixel phones. It still doesn't solve the problem, though, that a lot of people, they're not buying Pixels, they're buying Samsungs and LGs and what have you. So hopefully at some point in the future it gets better. But
yeah, they just need to get prettier. That's what we need with the Pixel.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but the thing about it is, I will say, I have noticed significant changes, not necessarily just on the Pixel. When it comes to Instagram on Android, it's just for example, boomerangs on iPhones last twice as much than they do on any Android phone. The codec for video, even if they're using more of the core video and not just creating a screenshot like they did before, even so, you will notice stabilization on the iPhone that you won't notice on the Pixel. You will notice dynamic range on the iPhone and Instagram stories that you won't notice on an Android phone. And so it's just, God, man, there has to be something they can do. They do need to fix it, because whether we like it or not, part of our business is social, man. In our case, whether I like it or not, I have to be carrying an iPhone. It's at any point in the day.
Right.
Fair enough. And like you said, your son will not use anything other than an iPhone. I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Damn it.
Yeah. We're done.
Walk right
that
into
week,
that
guys.
one.
See ya.
Oh, yeah.
I'm here all week. Everybody.
Oh, my God. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Friday.
And on that note, that's it for the. I'm just kidding.
No, that's the end. No, cut it off there. We're done.
You're good. You won't be able to come back.
All right. So from that awesome joke, all right, we have okay. How would you actually feel if there was a phone with the Energizer logo on the back?
Oh, what? You mean the Energizer that makes AA batteries that are in my drawer right now?
The bunny?
Yeah, the Energizer bunny. I would find it a little bit disconcerting that phone is not thick enough to actually hold AA batteries.
What I don't understand is, why are you surprised? There was a KFC phone.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't hear about that?
A Pepsi phone too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I remember with the pet.
Dude, it depends on your region, man. You'd be shocked. I'm shocked that they haven't made the move. Seriously.
Go on with your best. I think the Pepsi phone's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I you know what? Put it on the docket. I want to try these phones.
Okay.
I will do that. I will absolutely try that phone out. It would have been perfect to use it for this Sunday. I mean, Pepsi's all over the freaking Super Bowl, right? So
Yeah.
by the way, go Rams. Anyway, the
Uh.
the Energizer phone. The one thing that kind of gets me about this article is that Energizer, known for batteries, has nothing to say about the battery about this. It's going to be 3,000 to 4,000 milliamp hours. That's it. You know, and I would just love booting up that phone and it's the bunny. Like,
No. You know what I would love? I would love to try it out for like a couple of hours and then notice that it has terrible battery life. And so you could use the pun. It's like it doesn't keep going and going and going.
what if they said it's a 4,000 milliamp hour alkaline? It just dies after one use.
It keeps dying and dying.
Yes, there you go. All right.
I'm surprised it doesn't have a replaceable battery.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it'll be great.
I don't think the times where replaceable batteries are coming back.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh no, they're not. But it's Energizer.
Mm-hmm.
It just
It would be their thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like that would be their claim to fame. Like, oh look, we stuck with the removable back. Yeah, you can.
And they have those. They have those two buttons that you press to see what the level is. And like,
Yeah.
Oh my god.
This is it's just a reference fest at this point because we're talking about Energizer. All right, that was our news segment for today. We do have a couple of big stories to talk about, and we're going to go ahead and get into our little break for a second. Speaking of our break, I need a refill. This is how you know it's definitely the break.
ASMR at Pocketnow.
I know, right? PN ASMR. All right, cool. So there's a siren behind me. Let's wait for it real quick. Okay. All right. The Pocketnow Weekly is brought to you by TripleByte, the common app for software engineers. If you've been stuck trying to make your resume look nice for that coding job you've always wanted, you shouldn't have to go through all the trouble. And you shouldn't have to waste hours on take-home projects just to hear no answer from the company you're targeting. TripleByte makes it easy. They partner with over 400 companies like Reddit, Twitch, Adobe, and others to get you a direct connection. You take a quiz to determine your skills, and then you do a general interview. After that, you're just one more interview away from signing in. No one looks at your degree. You don't even need one. All they care about is if you can do your job. And if you can do the job, TripleByte will give you $1,000 signing bonus. Excuse me. And if you can do the job, TripleByte will give you $1,000 signing bonus. Head to triplebyte.com/weekly. That's triplebyte.com/weekly. All right. JV needs his medicine before we get back. All right. So, all right, we're back from the break, and it's already been a lively show. By the way, Max, like, let's get a little bit of your background for a bit for our audience, because obviously you're new to the show. I mean, you're new to half of us here, I think. And
I think so.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get a little bit of info, like where you from, what kind of work do you do, like, let our audience know.
Oh yeah, sure. So I'm just from New Jersey. I've lived in Tennessee, South Carolina, multiple places around the country. Basically, when I was 14, I was just looking at technology news sites because I was super into it. I've always loved technology. I've always had a fascination with computers and stuff. So I started looking at everybody, and they're doing tech news. I was like, I could just do that. So there's a free website builder called Weebly, and I just threw together a sort of like a makeshift technology website where I could just write about Apple stuff. So I started doing that, and people started reading it and stuff, but people wanted more, as people do most of the time. So I just expanded it to cover a bunch of different topics in technology and stuff like phones, laptops, basically everything Pocketnow covers, and a lot of other people. But I just wanted to put my own spin on it because it's me writing it and stuff. So it was actually originally called Embedded, but in 2017 I changed it to Matrodox so I could use Embedded as my my media company, which is sort of in the process of being built. I'm working on that, but for now it's just Matrodox, and I've gotten pretty far. So I basically just cover phone news. Like I love, like, if you're going to throw together a special phone with like 2 screens on the back or whatever, and 3 or 4 cameras on the back, like I'm going to write about it. So I like all like the interesting stuff in technology and everything. So I just like try to have fun with it and stuff. I try to pump out as much as I can. I've gotten kind of far with it because like I was invited by CES. I was elected as a trailblazer, like journalist. So like they flew me out and stuff. I got to cover it this year. Yeah. So
Oh, so you had that ribbon on the badge. Well,
yeah. Actually, I have mine, and it's hanging right here at my desk. I'll let everybody else see it. As you can see,
Nice.
so I was a trailblazer. Yeah, so it was a cool experience and everything. But yeah, I'm starting to get somewhere, and I just want to say, like, I wanted to say this at the opening, and I hope I'm not taking up too much time here. I just want to thank like you guys for like thinking of me to like come on the podcast, especially Jules, because I was in contact with him for a CES a collaboration article that I was doing, and I did invite Jaime as well because
I never got
yeah. It's all right. I mean, if you still want to send in your submission, by all means, go right ahead. I'll be happy to update it. But I met him at the 6T launch, remember?
Yeah, no, I remember.
Yeah, I was about 7 feet taller than he was, but
yeah, I know. Well, and we apologize. I mean, we do realize that this is a very crazy show and everything. I mean, we don't want to.
Look, I mean, it was a pleasure meeting you, and I wanted to reach out just to see if you were interested, but yeah, I did just want to thank you guys because I've always loved this podcast. I've always listened to it every week. Just trying to adjust my camera here, and it's kind of been like a goal of mine to get on it. So it's pretty cool that I'm on it now.
Well, you're definitely welcome back.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Well, welcome to the show, dude. And yeah, let's go ahead and get into our topics then for this second segment. So for our in-depth, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I was so flabbergasted by the fact that these stories actually were making it onto my network television news. Not mine. I mean, my parents were watching, and then it came out, and I was really surprised because this whole thing about Facebook trying to, it's a very invasive thing that they were trying to do. Now, whether or not it was actually, maybe I'll use the word illegal or perhaps nefarious. We can go into debate on that. But basically, what happened was Facebook was trying to pay. Actually, I'm sorry, I shouldn't be talking about that one. We're talking about something else. We're talking about something else right now. Before we get into Facebook, sorry about that, Jules. We're talking about why Apple's revenue tumbled with their new. Jules is like, you can switch. It's fine. It's fine. Let's talk about Apple first before we get into the Facebook stuff.
I was already gearing up for that Facebook conversation.
Were you really? Okay. Well, we can. Well, let's keep your thoughts in mind because I want everyone to kind of rev up for that one because I think it's going to be a great discussion. For now, let's go ahead and expound on Apple's revenue actually dropping with their first, not first, but one of their earnings calls of this year already.
Fine.
Well, we did talk about it a little bit before because there was already a projection that the revenue was going to have dropped. Now, Tim Cook tried to give two really big reasons about it. One of them being subsidies from carriers, but also I'm trying to remember what the other one was, but mainly the fact that the iPhones were supposed to be at a quote unquote great value.
I think they're blaming China.
Maybe a little bit. Foreign exchange, there's one, Jules. Thank you.
Right.
Foreign exchange, also in developed markets, less subsidies. But I don't know. Do you guys all buy it? I guess is the question I was looking for.
Dude, like if I had to buy my iPhone XS, like if it had to come out of my money, I would not. I would not. It's just I'm like $1,000. It's like
the
come
base
on,
model, the base model, yeah. For the 60,
it's like come on, man. It's like for me, if this were me, and like, dude, imagine in our case, like most of us, like our incomes aren't bad. Even with the ability to pay that much money for a phone, I wouldn't. I have no problem in paying $3,000 for a computer because I get value from it, because it serves specific purposes that I've tested cheaper computers and can't do. The question is, what can that phone do that makes it cost so much more money, man? It's just Apple is, I love how this reality distortion just caught up on them. I was waiting for it to happen. I told you guys when the iPhone 10 came out, I'm like, I hope that people don't buy it just to prove, if people go out crazy and buy it, it just gives every other company a reason to raise their prices, and that's what happened. Exactly. Every other company raised their prices. And so there had to come a point where that idea had to collapse. Like in the case of the iPad, people bought iPads, and the market went up crazy initially, and they were affordable and everything, and all that was great. But then there came a point where people realized that they don't need a different iPad every year.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing. If they're going to buy a phone for that amount of money, they're not going to upgrade every year. It doesn't matter. Like, their iPhone upgrade program only works in the United States. They need that everywhere if they want. Like, I like that upgrade program because you get Apple Care pretty much for free, Apple Care Plus, if you do the math. But it's like, God, dude, the price was just stupid. And if you notice, like, iPads grew in sales for the first time in like 4 years. Macs grew in sales significantly in comparison to the past. But then iPhones, which make up 65% of Apple's income, are down 15%. And that was an accident waiting to happen. It was just going to happen.
Yeah, and not to discredit any of the reasons that Apple, or rather Tim Cook, are trying to like sort of give here, but there are a lot of different reasons being given for the fact that the actual products themselves can't be brought down in price. This other story that we have here has to do with screws. Literally, it has to do with the fact that this very special screw that was supposed to go into the iMac Pro either they didn't get enough of them, or they're too special to be able to be made. There were also thoughts about labor costs out in China, and even though all of this is a factor, what they were trying to say with the iMac Pro also is that it was supposed to be made in the U.S. So of course that would also make labor costs, a little bit more extravagant.
Mm-hmm.
So there are so many reasons that are kind of coming out for all Apple products as to why the prices are so high, whether it be carrier subsidies. Jules just said in our chat right now that the iPhone XR at a Japanese carrier was still going for $1,200.
Wow.
So yeah. Like, we're in a very special part of the world in the case that we can actually look at the market from a particular standpoint, but we don't have the experience that people in Japan, people in Korea, people in China have.
But the problem is this: in the case of Apple, then you have companies like Xiaomi, who will teach you that if you make so much. So here's the thing: Apple has an advantage that every other Android OEM doesn't have unless they're based in China, and it's called they own the store. They get 30% cut for anything that's sold in that app store. And so Xiaomi has proven that they can completely remain profitable and make good money by selling phones almost at a cost and making the money from their software services. So why is Apple... The problem is not how much it costs. The problem is how much they want and how much they want to make out of each product, how much profit they want. Yeah. Apple really needs to drop their profit projections, man. Like, their profit projections are like higher than certain countries' external what is their external debt? Like, their profit numbers are crazy stupid.
Wow.
And so obviously they look great in front of investors and everything, but it's just they either drop their profit margins and accept the fact that they're already making good money out of software services, or bear in mind, this is just quarter number 2 after the launch. Can you imagine how quarter 3 and 4 are going to be before the next iPhone?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we also have. Oh, sorry. See, this is such a. While I queue up our next story, TK and Max, I want to make sure we get your thoughts on these projections. So, whatever thoughts that you have on Apple's sort of fall from grace, perhaps, but just in the very least, their revenue drops.
Well, I can chime in just real quick, TK, and I'll let you go. But personally, I just think they made their phones too expensive. When all of the rumors that were circling before the XS was announced, I really genuinely thought they were going to price the XS at $899 because I thought that would be a decent starting price, and then you get the XS Max for $999. That would give iPhone X buyers an incentive to spend another $1,000 to get a bigger screen. I mean, somewhat of an incentive. I mean, it's still not much of an upgrade, but regardless, like, they would at least get a bigger screen, a bigger battery. But I think they just set themselves up for disaster. I mean, they keep charging more and more for their phones. I'm sure they realize that they have to charge less in order to convince people to buy them, but for some reason they're just not doing that, and I don't understand why. But go ahead, TK.
I'm with you. I think the reach for the sky approach that we've been going year after year ever since last year with the first $1,000 phone, and then now we obviously see more and more people following. to Jaime's point as well, yeah, when people buy it, you're validating their assumption.
Mhm.
But the reality is a 799 is not an affordable phone. The 10R right now is free. You can get it actually included in a plan because that's the way to get it to go. I think the market will normalize. I think realistically, you're right. JV, in the US, we are in that certain subsidy area. I mean, I love being on Jump on Demand to be able to afford
yeah.
a $1,200 phone, because I'm not going to pay $1,200 for a phone. The same way Jaime said it, it's just too expensive. But I lease my phone and I jump from one phone to another, and that just justifies it for me. So
Mhm.
I hope this is a good learning experience, that they can actually start normalizing a little bit, realizing we've gone too far. We need to just adjust it and keep our market share where it is. There's no way for them to take over the entire market. Android is already strong enough. This is something they need to kind of, just the numbers will make them realize it.
Well,
You know
Jaime
what?
touched upon the fact that expectations from Apple themselves need to be measured, but it seems that the entire market also might need to reevaluate their expectations, because it seems that there are a lot of analysts out there who are overcorrecting. Maybe the hype for the iPhones were still very, very high, and the thing is that kind of sustainability, that kind of hype is not sustainable year after year, and this year that proved to be the case. So.
No, and here's the thing. Like, I was recently in MediaTek headquarters a couple of months ago, and for me, it was really interesting that there is still there's a billion. Their mentality is like, we're working for the next billion,
Mhm.
billion users that are not in the United States. They're in India and in Africa.
Mhm.
These people, like right now, the idea is to get as many people connected as possible. And so a lot of companies are not even investing. They're not even going crazy over what Apple's going for. And the problem is, like, there are countries going through recessions right now. Like, even China's economy is not at its best. So what exactly was Apple expecting? I thought that the iPhone 10 was going to be like, all right, it's been 10 years. We spent so much in R&D. And just like in the first iPhone, this phone was $500 plus a 2-year contract. You guys remember what the first iPhone was?
Yeah.
What did they do? That was actually, if you look into the history, the first generation iPhone was only costing that for like 4 months. That was, the launch was in June. Like, the announcement was in January, the launch was in June. By the music event in September, they dropped the price to $399 plus a
Whole
2-year.
100. Yep.
Okay, and then for the launch, and they killed the 4 GB model. They stick only to the 8 GB model for $499 plus a 2-year contract. And then by the launch of the iPhone 3G, they went to two. It was $199 or $299 plus a 2-year contract? TK.
It was the 199 with the 2-year contract. That was their
199.
biggest thing. Yep.
And so I get it. You invested so much in R&D. The first phone had to be expensive. Fine. But there was no reason for the iPhone 4S to be just as expensive. I feel that Apple was like, all right, you know what? Let's just keep the iPhone 8, which is a good phone. I actually recommend the iPhone 8. Let's launch the 10R. But it's just, I love that this is happening. Honestly, I'm sorry, but I have to say it. I love that this is happening, because this is what's going to teach companies, come on, guys. Come on.
Fair enough. And just to give one last note on that final piece, or the most recent one, that last piece, that the projection is that for the second half of this year, things are going to get better because you have things like summer discounts and all these deals. But the thing is, this is such a complicated issue for Apple, and also for just consumers in general, because like we said earlier, we are probably the ones who will get those kinds of discounts in a heavily subsidized area of the world. Meanwhile, in places like Asia, India, all those other places, there may not even be those kinds of deals. So it's still going to be the same problem, even with those projected increases in revenue.
That's one problem. And the other problem is that because Apple has decided to not provide numbers of how many products they've sold, only revenue, this is coming back to bite them. Because obviously, if they provide these discounts, if you do the math and you look at how much Apple has sold when it comes to the iPhone sales, obviously there is this like hype. There's a spike during the third quarter because of the iPhone, and then there's a natural drop because there are new phones coming out. The product is on its low end of the cycle. During the low end of the cycle, it's not like the numbers are already there of the amount of people that buy, so that number is not going to change. They're just going to make less money out of those phones because of the discounts, if they do accept to do the discount. So it's I don't think it's going to happen. Analysts have been proven to be completely wrong with the iPhone XS all year. All year.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how the adjustments actually happen. Okay, so we have one final one. I love that Jaime is so fired up. I'm going to start with Max on this one. Max, Facebook.
Yes,
Facebook approaches you, says, we're going to pay you a little bit of money every single month. All you got to do is install this particular app that we want you to install and just use it. Just use it every month. And we will give you, in this case, it says $20 a month. That was back in 2016. Let's say now you find out, or rather, even though you opted into this app and you know that it was tracking your data, now it's a big deal. How do you react to that kind of thing?
Probably with anger and resentment towards Facebook, which would probably result into me deleting the app from my phone and Facebook as a whole.
Yeah.
So but go ahead.
I was just going to say that's exactly what we're talking about here. So this is the story I was talking about that actually made it onto network television. It actually made it onto a lot of newspapers and publications. TechCrunch rather reported that since 2016, the company was distributing a data-sucking VPN. Look at that oxymoron.
I like that. You said VPN. Sorry.
In the form of a Facebook research app for both major phone platforms, Android and iOS. So what Facebook was telling people was that they were recruiting users aged 13 to 35 to join. It was an opt-in type of deal, and they were being paid $20 a month to use the app. Here's the thing. It was tracking every little thing you did on your phone. It was tracking your data inside and out. And Apple caught wind. Not only did they catch wind of it, they actually took that VPN off of their app store. And I'll just go ahead and mention these two things real quick. They actually disabled all of its internal applications for employees who actually work at Apple who could have potentially gotten into this VPN program. Obviously, we have companies like Apple and Google who track already, because you're an employee of theirs, everything that's happening. You don't want anybody else to be tracking the same exact stuff. Unreleased applications, under communications, exactly, embargo and NDAs. So Apple not only did that for their internal applications, they also did so for Google applications. But very recently, they did bring back the certificate for Google applications on their platform. So I think right now my main question is in terms of privacy, and I don't even have an actual question. I just want to know if all of you what your reactions are to this, and the fact that it became such a hot story, such a big story that affected kind of everybody in a way, because now we're seeing that a big company like Facebook, who has already had such problems, is still doing crap. It's still doing this kind of stuff.
It's the same reaction. I mean, when you think about the fact is, yeah, exactly. It's you don't know what you're getting into, even though you thought you're getting into something simple. It's not just standard, and there's just the implications, because then you're like trying to remember, like, what did I talk about? What kind of information did I have on my system at the time? And specifically, if you use your phone at work, exactly, Apple and Google would both be very, very upset if some leaks could have happened during that time. So I think it's the amount of ways that Facebook has to be able to actually collect data on us, not only through Facebook, through Instagram now. It bugs me that, when I get notifications in my Instagram application for my, Facebook notifications. So that to me is just the reach. So it's always surprising to see how far would they go, but just not being, upfront about the fact that they're tracking way more. Even with permissions, users should have been aware of what they're opting, what they're giving up for that $20 a month.
And I think Facebook was actually saying that they made their users aware of it. They were never secretive about the fact that it was actually tracking data that was on the phone. But, when you think about the general consumer, number one, they're being paid to use an app. You're probably going to say yes to that. Number two, do you ever actually, when you go into the Play Store, for example, or even the App Store, and you press install, and that whole spiel comes up that says, all the things that it does, do you actually even read it? And it kind of plays, in my opinion, this is the reason why I'm a little bit upset about it. It plays upon the naivete of the general consumer. And also, it's not that Facebook was being secretive about the fact that it tracked data. They found a way around a couple of the certificates in the Apple App Store. So the thing is that it actually broke the rules of Apple's TOS, because because all applications are supposed to have certificates and are supposed to have privacy policies.
Well,
So
but the
yeah.
thing about it is those certificates are limited. If you're a developer, you have a limited amount of certificates that you can distribute, and so that's the thing. It's not. All right. All I can say about this whole Facebook thing is, I think the correct word that you mentioned originally is nefarious. It's just like, yes, you did disclose it. Yes, you did tell it, but why? Like, I don't think that there's proof of a more desperate company. I think the word is desperate than Facebook. Like, it's crazy the amount of stupidity. Like, I've been wanting to kill Facebook for the longest time because it's literally gossip central in Latin America. That's just the way it is. But it's sad to see that they are willing to ask consumers to be part of something like this. Like, seriously? Like, are you really that desperate? Are you really that needy? Are your developers and your engineers so inept that they are not able to figure these things out on their own? They have to get consumers to provide their private data, photography, their messaging. Like, seriously, you need that? You guys can't do a better job? That's the way I see it. I honestly am. I don't think. I think the word is pissed. It's just, I'm so happy. Like, for example, my son does not use Facebook. I love that a lot of the newer generation millennials don't use Facebook. I love that they don't. I'm just, right now, I'm really sad that they also own Instagram and WhatsApp.
Yeah, that's true.
Because those are two services that were great before Facebook and that I've chosen to continue using just because, like, for example, they kept a lot of their leadership. And so these apps continued on their way of being. But, oh my God, man, I don't know. Honestly, I don't recommend people use this service anymore. It's terrible.
Well, how about this? How about this wrinkle in the story? And Max, I want to get your thoughts on both Facebook and this next part. Apparently, Google was doing something similar.
Yeah, no.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah. So Google apparently was kind of skirting these certificates, these enterprise certificates. And even though Apple and Google have started to work together to figure out how to fix that kind of thing, Google also said themselves that, it was a mistake for us to kind of, not adhere to the TOS, to Apple's enterprise program. But the app has been disabled, and we're working with Apple to fix where those mistakes occurred. We've also been very upfront with users about the way that we use their data from this app. The thing is, Google is kind of doing the same thing as well. Apple for once is sort of policing these kinds of things. But Max, thoughts from you about this whole privacy issue?
So first of all, I think it's completely insane that both Google and Facebook even considered building an app that would install this certificate on your phone, that they had to know it was in violation of Apple's terms of service, right? I mean, am I the only one here that doesn't, that thinks that way?
Well, I mean, come on. You have to build the app. Right. How
That's
long
what I'm
is it
saying.
to build the app? Of course you know that it either violates or it doesn't.
Exactly.
They can't argue ignorance. Come on, man.
Yeah,
exactly.
But the thing is, this is not an isolated incident. There are people figuring out that apps like Amazon, DoorDash, Sonos, they have the same certificate issue. So it's not really an isolated event. So I'm not trying to say that the producers of the apps have they were negligent or anything like that, but in a way, it's kind of possible, don't you think? Yeah,
it's absolutely. It's the whole thing just kind of bewilders me because what do they need the apps in the first place? Why do they need all of this data? Just whenever a privacy spill or whatever, a data leak, what have you, whenever something like that happens, I'm like, what are you guys leaking? You're leaking photos and videos and stuff that dumb people around Facebook have uploaded. So it bewilders me why they need all of this information on you in the first place. Just go and build an app that they know is in violation of Apple's terms of service, to build that and ask people, hey, we'll pay you if you install this on your phone so we can collect this data. I'm like, what are you going to use this data for anyway?
Yeah, that's always been my stance when it comes to this kind of stuff. It's one thing to opt in to have your data tracked. What I want to know is what you're going to use it for, and that's almost never answered. That question is almost never answered.
Oh no, it's not. They'll ask your permission. That's why both Google and Apple, they're improving the way that apps ask you permission to like use your location, use a bunch of different sensors on your phone, use your camera. Like I thought it was interesting that Marquez Brownlee, MKBHD, if you don't already know for some reason, he did a video. Well, you know, but he did a video on the Vivo Nex. I think it's called the Vivo Nex, right? With the pop-up camera.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so yeah. Well, I think this was a good representation of how unprivate Facebook is. Whenever he would open up the Facebook app on the phone, the camera would pop up.
Are you serious? I didn't see that part.
Yes. If you go to whatever video it is, I guess you have to scroll back probably a year. I guess it's been a year since then. But if you go, it's like a few minutes into the video, he says, oh, and also if you open up the Facebook app, the camera starts popping up. So that makes you concerned about your privacy, and then it just moves on. But I think that goes to show you, just what Facebook wants to do with your phone and how much data it wants to collect from you. So like, even if you don't deliberately take a selfie, you're kind of giving Facebook selfies every time you open up the app. It's like a shutter button.
It is. Yeah, pretty much. I should have the. We should all test that out. I think most of us in this chat right now have the Find X. We should try it out with that.
I don't have it with me right now. I'll have it next week.
I don't have it, period.
Oh, well. I'll bust mine out because I'm using it for a piece that I'm filming a little bit later after this cast, after lunch rather. But yeah, that's I always go back to the same thing. Like, there are some answers to what this data is being used for, and of course that's targeted ads, that's targeted marketing, stuff like that.
Which they already do. So to keep in mind, it's not like they're lacking on the data point there.
Exactly. So they do that already. And we all have those stories where Facebook is already tracking you in certain ways, or Google is tracking you in certain ways. And that's the reason why if I say the word meditation once, all of a sudden on my Instagram app, I have products for meditation. And it's like, it's
everywhere.
It's creepy, right? It is creepy. But at the same time, if you have the knowledge of knowing that that's the reason why they're using it, and if that's the only reason, I would actually kind of be okay with it.
But we don't know. You're aware of it. You're aware
of
it. It's the knowledge. It's not being done in the background. And exactly like you said, it's just knowing. You can opt for something as long as you know what you're opting for, not just a blank statement, carte blanche, come in and do whatever you want.
Yeah. Right, but like what I'm okay with is the stuff that they show on the surface. So when you install an app, it asks you, can I use your location? Can I use your contacts? All that kind of stuff. The stuff you see on the surface that they ask permission for, I'm okay with that. I'm trying to figure out why you need to install the certificate on my phone. What other data are you going to record? Because you've already shown me a bunch of stuff in prompts before I open up the app for the first time. So what else do you need from me that you're going to pay me $20 a month for?
Yeah,
like that's what's crazy to me.
That's where the term nefarious comes from, because they're just like,
yes.
There's no exactly. There's no better way of knowing that somebody doesn't like. There's no better way of knowing that someone has like weird intentions in mind than when they pay you for it.
Trust me, man. Trust me, bro. It'll be fine, bro. It's okay.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like somebody. It's like somebody asking me to like co-sign a car for them. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I'll give you $500. Like, no, like I'm not going to do that.
I'm good for it, man. I'm good for it. Just sign on the dot.
Exactly.
Okay. I'll make all the payments.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm going through my privacy settings just to make sure that my camera's not active on Facebook. Like, what the? It's like, no.
And you know what? It's funny because like you were telling us about this during CES, Jaime, that you wanted to kill Facebook for good. And that's and what I found funny is that you still wanted, well, you found it funny too, is that you want to kill Facebook, but you're still using WhatsApp. And that's like your number one app.
But the thing about it is, like in Latin America, we don't use text messaging like at all, like zero. Nobody. You get texts from like WhatsApp is the text messaging service here. Period. It's also in Europe, and so obviously I've been using WhatsApp since it was WhatsApp, since it didn't belong to Facebook. And so call that like just like people say, oh, iMessage for iPhone, okay. WhatsApp is like a very big deal breaker, not just for me. Like, how else would I communicate with people here? That's the problem.
Yeah, fair. This is something that we'll bring up in another show potentially, especially if we do a deep dive into this kind of privacy stuff. But again, we talked a little bit earlier about how we live in a very specific part of the world where things like privacy, things like even carrier subsidies are a thing and not so much everywhere else. I present Exhibit A of what this kind of future might look like. WeChat controls everything in technological China, and everyone there, you opt in by installing that app, but everyone can't live without it. It does everything from sending in your money to other people to actually paying for things in stores. Like when Issa and I were in Shenzhen one time, we were using WeChat to communicate with our friends who were there, but then we actually went to a place to buy tea and we paid for it using WeChat. Like, this is probably the future that some of these companies are looking for, to actually have that kind of control over it.
And one of the things that worries me is that I think that the app that is closest to achieving that is Instagram or WhatsApp. Like, I think that these are the two apps that have the most potential to become WeChats.
Yeah. Jules just brought up even an even darker. Is this Black Mirror all of a sudden? China is testing a social credit system with constant monitoring of its system of its citizens.
Yeah, I read about that part. Yeah, no, exactly. Judging and grading and rating other people's social stature and their trustworthiness, their credit worthiness. It's like, wow, okay,
yeah,
that's next level. Having other people judge you.
Yeah, and then one of our chat comments. Sorry that we haven't been in the chat more. This has been one hell of a show. These are all deep fakes from Connor. These are all deep fakes. None of these faces are real. Yeah, that's. I don't know if anybody has even like dived into the world of deep fakes yet. That could also be something that Facebook is trying to use. That's why the camera comes out. They want to get more of your face and start deep faking you. You know, like we being public figures, all of us. We probably. I don't know, Jaime. I'm pretty sure you might have. But like, have you ever had like an account on Facebook tried to impersonate you? I have.
I have in Twitter.
Okay, Twitter. I had it on Facebook. It was super creepy. And imagine if the deep fake like stuff actually happened on that. So it's actually really convincing. So all of this is so crazy, and it opens up a whole Pandora's box of like implications and whatnot. And I'm trying to figure out how to wrap this without it being so depressing.
It's Friday. Happy Friday, people.
It's true. TGIF, everybody. Go get some ribs at your favorite restaurant.
Celebrate Chinese New Year. Like you know, as you mentioned before, you know, it's a good time. Spend some time with the family. Even if you don't celebrate Chinese New Year, it's a great time to just
upload all your photos onto WeChat and during Chinese New Year.
I only upload of mine to Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, then you're good. No, I heard good stuff.
There's no way out. There's honestly just no way out. And on that, I've been watching a lot of the Grand Tour on Amazon recently, and the way that they end on that massive disappointment. That's it for the weekly. Our theme music is Bloom by Minerva, courtesy of a royalty-free license with Argo Fox. You can learn more in this episode's description. Follow our crew on Twitter. As long as you know it's the real people on Twitter, not these deepfakes. Our producer, Jules Wong, is at Point Jules. TK is at, I love this one, TKDSL 8655. Jaime is at Jaime_Rivera. Max is at, I love this one too, Legendary Scoop. I love that. That's such a cool handle.
Thank you.
And I am, of course, JV Tech Tea. You know me. I love tech, and I love to drink me some tea. Pocketnow is at Pocketnow on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube in English and Espanol, where you can find more news on the Pocketnow Daily and Pocketnow Audio every weekday. Catch up on what the weekly's talking about at pocketnow.com/podcast. And also, make sure you make your voices heard by emailing us, podcast@pocketnow.com. I want to start seeing some more like long form responses, by the way. Everyone get into the conversation, and we want to actually read what you guys are thinking about when it comes to all of these topics, especially on a show like today's that had a lot of really heavy stuff to talk about. We would also certainly appreciate your feedback through reviews and ratings on Google, Apple, Spotify, Overcast, or wherever you might be streaming us, because without you, we would not have been able to make this show for your eyes and ears for now 7 years straight. Stay fresh, cheese bags. Jules. Stay real, deep fakes, and we'll talk to you next week.